Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming and for standing by as we work out this morning's kinks. My name is Carla Strand, she, her. I'm the Gender and Women's Studies librarian for the University of Wisconsin system. And sorry, more kinks. And I'm also a freelance writer with regular columns in Ms. Magazine. I'm a queer white settler woman with long brown hair and glasses, and I come to you today from my home office, which occupies stolen Potawatomi land. We'd like to take a moment to honor the Indigenous peoples who care for the land on which we're located, and we ask you to do the same. So we're grateful for the Indigenous and ally labor that went into creating UW-Madison's specific land acknowledgement. But we also understand that institutional land acknowledgements are limited and deeply inadequate responses to the erasure, violence, and legacy of trauma brought on by settler colonialism. So with this in mind, we'll begin each day, usually a panel like this, so a keynote or a plenary, by giving you an abbreviated version of the UW-Madison land acknowledgement, and then share some information that is the result of our own critical thinking and discussions about the practice. So the UW-Madison is a land grab institution that occupies ancestral Ho-Chunk land, a place their nation calls Dejope. The Ho-Chunk were forced to cede this territory in 1832 and survived decades of ethnic cleansing when both federal and state government repeatedly, but unsuccessfully, sought to forcibly remove them from Wisconsin. So we honor the inherent sovereignty of the Ho-Chunk Nation, along with the 11 other First Nations of Wisconsin. So as white settlers, we recognize and acknowledge the violence, dispossession, removal, erasure, and genocide that led to the colonization of the land, the attempted destruction of communities and lifeways, and the enslavement of millions upon whose forced labor this country was built. Since our conference is taking place virtually, we also wanted to consider the legacy of colonization embedded within the technology that we're using, which remains unavailable in many Indigenous communities, and that's made from materials extracted from the land, and that contributes to changing climates disproportionately affecting Indigenous and other marginalized peoples worldwide. So we acknowledge the unearned benefits that we receive from this continued systemic oppression. We are committed to individual and collective action to disrupt the system in support of the full sovereignty of Native peoples, as well as the restoration of stolen land and resources, cultures, languages, and histories of Indigenous, Black, and other people of the global majority who continue to live, learn, work, and thrive on these lands. So we encourage you to take a look at the link that we're going to drop in the chat, which is a bibliography that we created entitled From Land Acknowledgement to Action. So the resources there can help you begin to investigate whose land you occupy, research Indigenous critiques of land acknowledgements, but also, and most importantly, to take action in your areas. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Carla. It is now my honor to introduce our opening plenary for today, which is hosted by 4W Streets. STREETS stands for Social Transformations to End Exploitation and Trafficking for Sex, and is part of a larger campus-wide initiative called 4W, which stands for Gender, Women and Wellbeing in Wisconsin and the World. The 4W Streets is also pursued under the auspices of UW-Madison's UNESCO Chair on Gender, Wellbeing, and a Culture of Peace. You may learn more about Streets through their website, which we will now drop in the chat. I will now hand things off to Jean Guerin, who will introduce our panelists for today.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jean Guerin, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a white woman in her 50s with blonde hair mixed with some gray and dark glasses, and I'm joining you from my home office in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I am the Director of Engagement for 4W Streets and have led the project along with Araceli Alonso since 2015. 4W Streets has the mission to contribute to the end of human trafficking, both locally and globally, through education, action research, and collaborative engagement that are grounded in the perspectives and preferences of survivors. We do this through creative collaboration that incorporates diverse perspectives and goes far beyond academic approaches, traditional academic approaches. Our website is full of helpful educational resources that amplify survivor voices and provide suggestions for better, more informed service provision and support for them. Some of the Streets plenary session recordings from the last 7 Women and Gender Studies Consortium spring conferences are available on the site. We have been privileged and honored to participate over the past few years, and we're delighted to be back again this year. So thank you, Stephanie, and all the organizers. This year, we've chosen a topic that builds on Streets collaborative work with 2 of our research affiliates from Spain, Esperanza Jorge and Inma Antolines. We are very fortunate to have Esperanza with us today, joined by Ara. Together, they'll be revisiting work they have done on survivor perspectives and trafficking patterns of Nigerian women in Spain and the EU through Morocco, and comparing it with patterns uncovered by Esperanza through her current and ongoing research in Central America, Mexico, and the US. The similarities and differences along both borders highlight the importance of contextualizing anti-trafficking work. We'll have a brief presentation by Ara and Esperanza, and then I will come back on at the end to moderate a question and answer period. So please submit any questions to via the Q&A function at any time during the presentations, and we'll come back around to discuss them at the end. So now I'll turn it over to Ara to introduce today's topic.
Thank you, Jean. I'm trying to put this. Okay. So I hope that now you see the whole PowerPoint. Thank you so much, Jean, for your introduction. Good morning, everyone. My name is Araceli Alonso, she, her pronouns. I am a cisgender Latina white woman. I have short hair, kind of blonde, but like Jean, also getting some gray and even white. I'm joining this call from my home in Madison. First, I would like to thank you, Stephanie, Carla, and Lydia. Thank you for your dedication and commitment to create this magical space where we can share work and passion with our colleagues in Wisconsin and beyond our state. And even now,
Ara, may I interrupt you? Because
yes, of course.
See, we can't see your slide. We can only see your, thank you. Now we can see your slide. So we could see your notes before, so just wanted to change that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is, okay, wait. Something is happening. Let me see. Okay.
We can see your slide now, so you can
see the slide now. Okay. So I was okay, hold on a second. You know, sometimes this is what happens when we are in the cyber world. Thank you, Jean, for letting me know. Let's see. Kind of lost now. Well, what I was just, I was thanking Carla, Stephanie, and Lydia for all the work that they have done. So now I'm going to start right away so I don't lose track of what I'm saying. I'm going to start by stressing the importance of these 2 concepts, silence and absence, in the ethnographic work that we have done with our UW-Madison students and also with victims and survivors of human trafficking since 2015. Even during the pandemic years when we couldn't move physically, we moved our work to the cyberspace and we kept working with the same objectives in mind. More specifically, we have worked with victims and survivors in the context of migration and human trafficking in 2 borders. As you see in the maps, these 2 borders are South Europe and North Central West Africa, and South United States and Central America. But we have not only done ethnographic work in these two borders, but also along the routes, often accompanying the women in parts of their long journeys. And as you can see, I haven't traced the journeys, I haven't traced the routes because they change constantly. So the ones I had a few months ago, they are not the same routes any longer. With this in mind, we would like to acknowledge specifically the Nigerian migrant women and migrant women from Honduras that have participated in this work and who have played a leading role in the critical analysis and understanding of these two concepts due to their individual and collective experiences. This part of our work on trafficking and migration has been informed by two questions. One, how are silences, this time in plural, and absences constructed? And two, how do women confront them? One clarification here is that these concepts cannot be understood without the principal means that produce them during the journey and once in the destination country: the abuse of power, the intimidation, the exploitation, the violence, including extreme sexual and psychological aggressions, the buying and selling of women, or ultimately the disappearance of women's bodies. In our work, both silence and absence are intrinsically interconnected as we consider both verbal silence that imply absence, control, or distortion of discourses, and bodily silences that imply disappearance, concealment, or physical control. Both verbal and bodily silences lead to invisibility. In migration and trafficking, women are not seen, are not heard, are not found, are not even noticed. They could simply be eliminated without leaving a trace. To answer these two questions, we have used trauma-informed tools to avoid the re-victimization of victims and survivors. For example, we have used forum theater, where the oppressed can become oppressors and where the audience is invited to change the outcome. This way, hierarchies and stories of violence can be transformed and subverted. In the case that we are seeing in the slide, we did several short performances where the students became the oppressed and the women the oppressors, but also the directors of the scenes, representing all stages of trafficking for sexual exploitation according to the lived experiences of the women. Another example is the use of collective narratives where groups of women produce shared drawings, songs, musics, collages. We have done body movement together. We have created joint body mapping. No wonder why we often refer to our methodology as a patchwork methodology. But with all these sometimes academic and orthodox tools, we have been able to produce a choral symphony with a fusion of stories that not only tell and become visible, but also reclaim spaces of liberation and social justice. And now I'm going to give a space to my colleague, Dr. Esperanza Jorge Barbusano, to reveal her most recent ethnographic work in Central America, work that started here in Madison last summer. Esperanza, please.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you so much, Hara, and thank you all person here. If I have to introduce myself as someone, it would be a person who wants to walk and narrate the world with clandestine traveling women to change it together. My name is Esperanza Jorge Barbusano. and it is a great pleasure to be here with you, with all you, today at the 4W Street Plenary with Araceli Alonso, with Jean, also with Stephanie. Thank you so much. I want to say I am here with all women who walk and narrate the work. I want to start giving a technical name of this effort to walk and narrate with women in movement. We do multi-sited feminist ethnography. This ethnography we do on migratory routes. We have walked from North Africa, also from West Africa, and from Central America and Mexico. Today, we will put it in dialogue. This multi Honduran woman with whom I discussed the migratory route a few months ago. She helped me bring Glenda and Doña Cristina together after 34 years without contact between daughter and mother. Glenda is one of the many women who go missing on the road, and she is one of the few that have been found. A month after the meeting, Doña Cristina died. For this reason, from here, our memory. I meet, please, thank you. I meet Paula during my stay in Tapachula. Tapachula is on the southern border of Mexico. It is important to underline the externalization of the borders that is done from the north, United States, Europe, for migratory control. I'm talking about agreeing and paying first country to manage the migration. This means that the fundamental right of territories and also right of people don't have to be respected without the North country taking direct responsibility. In these violent territories, the women we are talking about stay for a long time. In them, invisible practices such as exploitation, kidnapping, or human trafficking take place. For this reason, we want to ask, does the border blockade combat these practices or reinforce them? We want to narrate the topic with these precarious and damaged women. They narrated the violence and resistance with creative material. In the slide, we can see some example of body silenced and bodies sold. These were made by different women on the route. Another? Next. Thank you. Trafficking network and criminal group take advantage of this situation. Sometimes this happens in collusion with public institutions. There are many reports about it in Mexico, for example. Faced with this, strategies are developed for the women. Some of these strategies are traveling hidden but paying more, looking for a boyfriend on the road, making a group of women to travel together, or being part of a migrant caravan. With these strategies, they seek protection against criminal group, but also they seek protection against the institution, because the institution may be in collusion with these criminal groups. Our the institution also make the detention or refoulement, even ignoring international treaties. Returning to Paola, she told us, I am from Lloro, Honduras, the place where it rains fish. And then add, we are fish. We are all fish. She said this because people move and go from one place to another to look for food, life, and safety. Paola said, where I come from, there is a lot of violence and little food. There is also a lot of nature, and it is beautiful. Honduras is one of the countries where the control of the territories by criminal groups or MARA is painfully extended. The photograph we see is from the photojournalist Encarni Pindado, who collaborates in our project in this moment. In it, she shows a girl in the context of occupied neighborhoods, in this case by Mara 18. On the wall, you can see the mark of the gun 18. Beside, she shows the lifeless body of a woman in an open field. For us, the images speak. The first time Paola went out on the migratory route was when the Mara murdered her father. And Paola continues narrating, but some of us are fish that were born without fins because we are girls, women, poor, or Honduran. And then throughout life, we lose another fin because violence is waiting for you in the neighborhood or in your house or in your own bed. And from my grandmother, it goes to my mother, and from my mother to me. And I have daughters. All this violence follow her along the way. Other girl, other women say, we are butterfly without wings. We are talking about the traces left by migratory context on women's bodies. On the route from Central America or from Mexico, we want to highlight absence as one of the main scares. Disappearance is frequently linked to the imposed silence that prevents or limits being able to narrate. On this route, the disappearance of people take on a terrible dimension. This year, the Mexican government say that the number of the missing people have exceeded 100,000. Migrant girls and women tread by violence and walk on disappearances. Maria was kidnapped. You can see in the slide, Maria. Her face shows it. She tells us so that it doesn't continue to happen. Paola was first deported as a minor in Mexico. Her mother was left alone on the road with Paola's baby. Today, years later, Paola returns pregnant to meet her daughter and her mother again. When the caravan of migrants from Tapachula was about to leave, Paola went into labor. Maria Alicia was born. A few weeks after her birth, they continued north to cross into United States to ask for asylum. But at the border, no one listened to her. They were returned to the bridge in Mexico. The bridge is a very, very important point of many kidnapping. Everyone know it. And for us, also the Border Patrol probably know it. Next, after the border experience, Paola went to the house of a friend in Mexico and is still there. It is the same city where she was a waitress at the age of 12. As she tells us that her first scar, her first broken wing on her road was getting pregnant when she was little. In the collage that Paula made, and you can see in the slide, she wrote on her silhouette, rape. In the silhouette say violar, and kidnap in the silhouette, secuestrar. With her, we cross a country, a river, and a story of a migrant woman. Paola's mother was arrested and in prison while she was in Mexico also working as a waitress. She was accused of human trafficking. She was a migrant accused of the crime that she was really suffering. She went on a hunger strike in prison, and her case was very famous. A human rights defense lawyer proved her innocent. He also showed that she was one of the many women who were in a situation of labor or sexual exploitation on the other side of the blocked borders. They are women who would go to the North, Spain, United States, to continue exploitation as such or as human trafficking. As we have already said, the disappearance or absence on this route is terribly important. This takes many forms, as the group of seeking mothers told us. Some of these forms of disappearance are putting migrants in jails, like the case of Santa. But the most usual is that the disappearance of migrants is related to the kidnapping for the extortion of families, or for sexual or labor exploitation, for drug cultivation, sale of human organs, etc. And of course, it is important to us to talk about the disappearance by execution of the person. In this work, we have accompanied the Central American mothers who have traveled through Mexico with the photos of their disappearance hanging around their necks. Other organizations such as Águilas del Desierto search for the missing people on the other side of the border, in this case, on the United States side. Genesis, one of the Central American seekers, has been looking for her mother since 2012. When she disappeared, she was working as a waitress in a bar in Monterrey, Mexico. When we worked on the border in Tijuana, a colleague from an NGO, the name of the NGO is Casa Arcoiris, She include a band bus in her college. She wanted to reflect the bus full of migrants that foundered on fire. Nothing is known about the people it was carrying. Perhaps they are kidnapping, Nicolasa tells us. In the slide, we can see the photo of Genesis' mother outside the bar where she disappeared in Monterrey, and the bus full of people and full of flame. There are too many butterflies, too many fishes whose fins we could off to prevent them from moving, living, existing, being in the world. Paola is an example of a finless fish. Genesis' mother is an example of a wing without a butterfly. 3 generations of women together in the imagine. Grandmother and daughter present. Mother only in the photo. Disappearance is a reality on the road. Universities, society, all of us have a duty to change this. A life they took them, and a life we want them. Thank you so much.
As another way to tell, to encounter, and to become visible, one of the survivors from Nigeria, Akere Monday, has written a book with the assistance of our Esperanza Jorge Barbuzano, and another colleague from the University of Cádiz in Spain, Inmaculada Antolines. This is a story narrated in the first person by Akere Monday, revealing the visible and invisible scars that her story of migration and trafficking have left imprinted in her body and even in her soul. The book is called 10+1, a decalogue of scars. The first scar is half current. That explains very much why the other scars happened. The half current is the way girls are referred to in Nigeria when they are born. And they are given less food than boys, less schooling, less affection, and less freedom. And I quote from the story, then you have to do different inferior things. And later they will do different worse things to you and to your body. The other scars, as we see them here in the slide, are the cuts, the contract, the silence, the rape, the desert and the uniforms, the baby that resists the hits, the sail, the sea, the sexual exploitation, and the 0 scar, the +1 scar. That is the separation, the absence. From all the scars, I would like to read 2 that stress the 2 concepts of silence and absence that we are talking about here. The silence, the scar 4. I am reading from the book. You have it there, but it's difficult to read for you. That woman left us with a man who said that he was going to take us to Europe. He put us all in the back seat of a car so people wouldn't ask, where are they going? He didn't take us to a plane. We went all the way by land. When we asked why, he grabbed me by the neck, lifted me off the ground and hit me on the head. He grabbed us like that many times. From that moment, we could no longer go back or talk. Now there was just obedience and silence. This invisible scar, the scar 0, can be triggering for some of us, for some of you in the audience, for many of us, in fact. But it's very important for Akere that her story is finally heard and not silenced, that her scars become visible, present and not absent, because this is not only her story. It is the story, the scars of too many young women who embark in a dangerous migration journey and who confront exploitation during the journey, and even more when they reach the destination country. This is what she says in the explanation of the invisible scar 0. I took my baby with me, and I have to leave him with someone to earn money. My leg hurt and would get swollen. The men penetrated me, and the madame threatened me by saying she would harm my son. I remember being cold, being beaten, doing what I didn't want to, drinking a lot, whipping off the remains of an egg that was thrown at me, and also drinking hot chocolate with a woman who came and sat down to talk with us. I gave some signed papers to a social worker, and I took my son there to shelter him from harm. After that, I escaped and went to a safe house. I thought they would give him back to me, but that was many years ago. Being separated from my baby is a scar that I can't even talk about. I end the quote. Again, the self-imposed silence, the absence of her son imposed by others. The stories are hard to listen, are hard to read, but the women demand to be heard and to be read. In another page of this book, Akere says, telling stories only to yourself is a form of silence too, but it's also the beginning of a dream, the dream to be visible, to be seen, and to be heard, to become a full body, to be whole again. Silence and absence have been constructed and imposed to women in the context of trafficking and migration. First, by silencing their stories of struggle and survival, and second, by eliminating their physical bodies. However, the women have responded by using their imagination, creating new horizons, new alternatives, forcing themselves to speak up and disclose their stories, forcing themselves to find the bodies of their disappearing ones. For the women who we are representing today, the telling is the main way to confront silence and absence. To make what is silent heard, it has been necessary for them to tell. To make what is absent present, it has been necessary for them to search and find. By visibilizing the silences and absences, the women are insistent on their own rights, as well as on the rights of other women who have not yet left their countries, but who will do so in search for a better life. We are going to leave it here so that we have plenty of time. We thank you very much for being very patient with us, and we will answer to all the questions that you have. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Esperanza, Jean. Thank you, everybody, for allowing us to find these spaces where we can break the silence and become whole again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ara and Esperanza. Beautiful work. We do encourage you all to add your questions, please, in the Q&A if you have some. I'm going to start the Q&A with a couple questions of my own to get us going. So one thing that struck me struck me first. There are many things that struck me. But in the beginning, you talked about the survival strategies of the women on the US-Mexico border, or that route that you were describing from Honduras. I'm curious so I have two questions related to the strategies. One, are there different strategies between the two borders? I know some of them are similar, but if you might outline what some of the differences might be in the strategies that you've discovered women using on each border. I'll start there, and then I have a follow-on question. So either Ara or Esperanza.
Maspe, would you like to start and saying some different strategies between the two borders?
Yes, I prefer to start because my English is terrible and Ara can make better answer, of course. Thank you, Ara. Thank you, Jean, for this question. Yeah, the different strategy in both border. I think one difference is the principal scare in the border between Africa and Europe is the silence. And for this, one important strategy is break this silence and make a space to speak. And for this, the different NGO in the border make a very, very important work to accompany this strategy to fight the silence. For example, different women who cross the border talk to the women in the other side of the border to explain how can talk in a safe space with NGO, normally with NGO. Because in one important problem to break the silence is the policy, because the policy in Morocco, in Africa, perhaps is linked with the different criminal groups, and sometimes in the policy in Spain or in Europe is trying to block the route, and sometimes it's more important for them block the route also, or even when the life of women is in danger because she is in trafficking or something like this. The very, very important in this situation is break the silence and explain the situation. And in this part of the route through United States or the north of Mexico, one important strategy is relating with the disappear. It's important link with the NGOs or you can see in the slide the migrant caravan. This is a very, very important strategy. Or the other one is travel a group of women together and with liar. This is very, very important too. In this case, the institution in Mexico, also in Central America, sometimes is very, very connect with some criminal group. The extortion is very, very common. The extorsion with the migrant, with the migratory institution also. I don't know, sorry. And there are a lot of strategy. Each life to cross our border I think has one new strategy.
I would like to add something, Jean. Can I add
Sure,
something
of
also?
course.
Maspe's explanation is wonderful,
Very
and
good.
what I see is that there are many similarities in terms of strategies. There are also many differences, and one of the differences that Maspe and I have talked about is even just a created perception, like an artificial perception of what is hope, what is survival. Like in the border of North Africa and Europe, one of these created perception is that to come out from trafficking and survive is life. And so this is just like a living strategy is to survive and to come out from trafficking situations. In this part, in the border of the United States and Mexico, it becomes really blurred with the disappearances, as Maspe said. And then trafficking becomes even more entangled and complicated because some women even dreamed that their daughters have been trafficked, because that will mean that their daughters are still alive. So it's a different type of hope, and it's a different type of creation of survival strategy.
Thank you. Those are both just wonderful explanations. We have a couple questions that follow on that. One of our former colleagues, lovely Olivia, has asked how you incorporate art and the impact of art in your work, Esperanza, and in working with the women. And it relates to another important question. You referenced the NGOs and then your own work, but can you describe a little more about how you create those safe spaces for women in order to share and speak? I think we need a lot more of those, but those are not easy things to create in a way that allows the women to feel safe and able to speak and to tell their stories. So I guess we have a couple questions on your methods, both related to creating safe spaces and then the integration of art.
Okay, I can try in English. First, I want to say what is safe space. And for us, it's important listen to them, to women, yeah, and listen women in different space, because it's very different. The necessary because the necessary depend the situation of the women. It's very different when we work in the border, or if we work in the shelter, or different space, and different women on or different route. And for us, it's important first listen what is safe space. It's important to work together with the NGOs in territory, because our work is for a very small time, and we want to reinforce the work of the NGOs in territory. And first, perhaps, is work together with different disciplines. Lawyer, psychology, nurses, academic, and different persons. I think the society work together to repair the space, the routes, because we want to make the safe route, not the danger route. And for this, we work also with, as Ara said, with a specific methodology using the artistic tools. like photographic or pictures, or because sometimes the silence is very hard. And when we work, for example, with theater, the space is start in a different way, for different reasons. Also, you can work with people with different languages, or you can work talking in anonymous,
Anonymous, yeah.
anonymous, because we narrate the route, the women in the route, on the route, but no my own, only my history or something like this, because they can't narrate, because the criminal groups say you can speak about this because it's a crime, and it's important understand the situation of women. And I don't know if
That's great. Let me just clarify, and then Ara, if you have something to build on, because this has jumped out to me in observing your methods, the important protection offered by a collective narrative versus an individual narrative. There's a lot of risks and danger involved in telling your own story. Some women have to do that, and that's part of their journey once they're in a location that is safe. But along the way, when they're still feeling vulnerable, they do seem to receive a lot of empowerment by telling a story together. And then identifying, they know the pieces that apply to them, but the collectivity provides some protection. Ara, did you want to add something to that piece?
Just a little bit to answer Olivia. Wonderful, Olivia. Thank you for your question. Without the arts, I really truly believe our work will not be possible at all, because we never ask questions, and we don't elicit questions from the women at all. The stories flow like a river. And we have been the ones who have been surprised many times, because after doing a collective narrative, specifically more collective narratives, the women have told us that this has come a kind of catharsis in their own words. The organizations that work with them, so the women don't know how to put it in words. So they don't tell us, oh, this has been the most amazing, incredible experience. No, but the organizations that work with them have told us this is really the first time that we have understood what the women went through. And we have seen a kind of catharsis during the process of telling. So it's not just by telling, but it's during the process of constructive and collaborating with other women. And because these stories are very unique, but they have also many points in common. And normally the way that Maspi and I work is just by focusing more on the care aspect of the story, no, as Maspi say, not on the dangerous part or the horrible things that have happened. And then these came out naturally. These things came out because they are the strongest part of the story, but we start always with the beautiful part of the story through the arts.
And I'm sorry, I can add, yes. And it's important for us, don't propose talk about trafficking or also exploitation or something like this, because it's very dangerous for them. We propose, we can talk about ourselves, but our body, our health, but it's important. Don't say talking about the trafficking, because they can do it, trafficking, but the professional, the academics can understand or find the indicator of trafficking without the narrative of trafficking. This is important.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a couple more questions, but we have some time. So I'm going to interject with my own that follows on what you just said. So Maspe, in your work, you just referenced using these methods to not only bring out the collective narratives of the women for their own healing and well-being, but also to identify trafficking for the police or law enforcement. In Spain in particular, you've done that quite a bit. And so I wonder if you could speak a little bit to that link on the other border. So have your methods been able to, or have you been able yet to use those to speak to law enforcement or policy makers to improve the situation? If not, what is the potential for doing that later? One question that might prompt some thinking is, you mentioned that the lawyer was able to prove that Paula was trafficked instead of just, or she had been accused of participating in trafficking, and then her lawyer was able, if I understand correctly, to show that no, she was actually a victim or a survivor of trafficking. So can you speak to those, whatever piece makes the most sense to you of using your methods to not only advocate broadly to community, but to advocate to policy makers and law enforcement?
I don't know if I understand the question.
Well, why don't you, Ara, do you,
Yes.
you want to start?
Oh,
And
sorry.
then
Yes, and I will start, but I know Maspe has so much to say on that. So Maspe, like the silhouettes that you use for identification of human trafficking in Spain and help the police, have you thought about doing something similar, or have you done something similar in this border to help women like Paola to be identified as a victim of trafficking? As you can see, my English is better than yours, Jean.
it is. That was way better. Sorry about that. Moderator fail.
Go ahead, Mas.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. I could work together with different agent of institution to detect trafficking through this methodology in this part, in this border. And when when travel to the route through Mexico to United States, I apply this methodology in different NGO, but not in the institution. But when work with this methodology in Tijuana and different point, in the shelter, the team asked me if it's possible use this methodology, these tools for identify. For me, I'm very happy with this, and also in Honduras, because when I worked in Honduras, sorry, Honduras, one of the NGO of mother seeking mother asked me if it's possible use these tools. Wow, for me, I'm very, very happy, because can, I don't know, put a small thing fighting the trafficking and fighting the exploitation and fighting the danger.
Wonderful.
I would like to add something, because it's, because both borders are similar and very different. So one of the, not difficulties, but just would say difference in using this methodology for victim identification it would have to be maybe not modified because it's based on the Palermo Protocol. It has all the elements that the Palermo Protocol suggests to recognize victims of human trafficking. But one of the characteristics of the trafficking of women in this border where we are right now, United States and Central America, is that the disappearances of women take it over. So we have confronted fewer cases of human trafficking and many, many more cases of disappeared women than in the other border. In the other border, we haven't seen disappearing women, but we have seen huge number of cases of human trafficking. So, but what we have to be really conscious is that the trafficking of women start at the moment that they cross the border with the United States. So that the identification would be used in the border and then in the destination city. So if we are thinking about Madison and we are working with organizations, we should identify women who have been trafficked all the way from the border to Madison, more than from Honduras to Mexico.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction, and that highlights the differences. The link to trafficking is very visible through your methods, Maspe, along the Nigeria, Morocco, Spain border. All along the way, you can identify with these methods. But I would agree, Ara, that it seems to be the case that because of the disappearances, the place to employ your tools most effectively to identify trafficking would be here in the US once they're here in safe spaces. So I'd like to build on, there was another question. Thank you patiently. Someone was patiently waiting for this answer. It regards what happens to the women you've worked with after these theaters or interviews. And then really with the thought to how do you create sustainable partnerships with the NGOs you're working with. So could you speak a little bit more to specifically how you work with the NGOs and what's the potential for a longer term collaboration on these issues with them as they care for the women?
Would you like to start, Maspe, or you?
No, you.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a very, very long-term relationship, and it's not going to end. So it will not be possible to work with them any other way because we have to build trust. And building trust is very difficult with organizations that don't trust anyone. So it's just, it takes time. It takes a lot of willpower, a lot of energy, and a lot of authenticity, because what we want to do is not really to show off in the academic world. It is really to serve the women. And so we are part of the organizations. And as you know, Jean, the organizations are part of our academic work right now. So we always bring the victims, the survivors, the organizations into the academic work that we do, because if we are working for them or we are writing about them, they have to be here with us. So we include them in everything that we do. They are the main characters, and that's why the book that I presented, that is Esperanza's book, is not really Esperanza's book, it's Akere's book. And the only thing is that she just was seeking the help and the assistance of Esperanza and Inmaculada to write the book, because Esperanza and Inmaculada have a platform that Akere doesn't have. So this is just building trust and building trust constantly, and never giving up with this trust.
Yes.
Anything, Maspe? Would you like to add anything?
For me, wonderful. I think we should able to be more everything, NGO, more civil society, more women, immigrant women. I think need make bridge between territory, but between person, between group, and work together, thinking together, and confront the danger together, and make a new world, the world with all person. Nothing is, no more danger for nothing.
And the women, Jean, the women become part of our existence. We cannot have an aseptic relationship with them, never ever. They become part of our own stories. And, I have seen Maspe doing so many things with the women in Spain and now in Central America. And here in Madison also, we work with the women from Honduras who have been helping us with this understanding of migration and trafficking, and they have become part of our own stories.
So that's wonderful. And there was a question on, how you deal with the structural limitations of doing research with this population. And I think you've answered that partially. We may come back to that if we have time. But there was another question about, which I think is relevant to many listeners, about self-care, or how do you maintain well-being yourselves and maybe the NGO staff who are facilitating these safe spaces for women who have been through so much. So how do you protect your own well-being, Maspe?
For me, the most important protection are the women, of course, and the objective of them. When I listen, the objectives in the life, in the world, and I can put anything in this objective, for me, it's a safe space for us, for our project. This and perhaps the second important tool is the art. The art, because it's a space that open the mind and open the heart, and it's possible dream another world.
And I know, Jean, that Maspe dances like really dances in a way that her body movement helps her. But I do 1.5 hours of meditation every day because I don't think I can survive any other way.
That's beautiful. Yes, there are many strategies, but they are important. But it's interesting that the arts can not only protect and create safe spaces for the women, but also for the facilitators. And this is how we survive as well. There was a question on how people can access some of your research, Esperanza. I will say that there's some of it, including the book that you've seen pictures of Akere, are on the Streets website. So please check that out, as well as a film that was made a few years ago on the Nigeria-Spain border. But Esperanza, do you want to share any other ways that people could access your work specifically?
Sorry, I don't understand the finish. Sorry.
Where can people learn more about your work other than the Streets website?
I don't have.
Well, good. We're delighted that you shared it with us, and it is freely available on our website.
Yeah, she has many articles, and so
yes,
so much. And if you just most of the articles are in Spanish. Only the ones that we wrote together are in English now. The book is also in English. And by the way, I really wanted to stress something about the book that I haven't said about the Akere Mondays book. The book was not only written as a way of catharsis for Akere to tell the story. Her main intention is to bring it to Nigeria, and we are going to make it happen one way or another. We'll make it happen. So to bring it to Nigeria and be freely available to all girls in the schools through organizations that the same story of Akere doesn't happen again. But for MASPE, even if you just YouTube MASPE, Esperanza Jorge Barbujano, you will just see hundreds and hundreds of interviews with MASPE because she's all over the world. But the interviews, I think they're mostly in Spanish. But if you speak Spanish, wow, there are many and beautiful.
Wonderful. So I think Stephanie is back. It's time to wrap up. So thank you both, Ara and Maspe. I'll turn it over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean.
Yes, thank you so much. This was such a fantastic way to start the conference today. And I really appreciate all the efforts and the work that went into this panel. And we did drop the artist exhibition piece that aligns with your talk in the chat for people to view afterwards. I just wanted to, again, thank this fantastic panel. And we also added in the chat, this conference has 3 days of concurrent sessions, keynotes and plenaries, and asynchronous events. So our next round of concurrent sessions starts at 11:45, and you will have 3 options to pick from. And we also have our on-demand pre-recorded sessions and our on-demand virtual artist exhibition available throughout the conference. And you can click on those links, you can add comments, you can add questions, and they're all meant to continue the conversations that we're having here and to connect the different threads and themes of the conference throughout our 3 days of sessions and events. So thank you, everybody, again, for joining us. Thank you for the audience and for all of the fantastic questions. And we look forward to seeing everybody in the coming hours and days as we continue with our conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.